How did Betty all say it? Vara's Quickstep, huh? Where are Quickstep? This is like, if you watch these two races side by side, 2021 versus 2022, it's like night and day, the difference between Asgreen in group with multiple riders, 4 riders in a group of 9. Here is solo closing with 4 Jumbo riders with 80 Ks to go. It is difficult to be overly critical of teams at the moment. I've actually been holding back a little bit because there's so much sickness, so many injuries. Is that the explanation for this, Benji? Or what? Because why are they such a different team to last year?
I think that we can even go more extreme in saying that Quickstep today was the Jumbo-Visma of last year, a solo leader having to do everything himself in a race. Jumbo today was Quickstep of last year, even when it comes to the attack on the Timeberg and so forth. Just very similar behavior in that sense, being in the front group with multiple riders, outnumbering the others. It just switched around between this year and last year. Now, why is that? I'd argue it's mixed. Jumbo-Visma has strengthened their team clearly with Tish Benoit and Laporte. Like, without those two, who is still with Wout van Aert after the Timeberg? And then you've got an issue. Nathan van Hooydonk, perhaps, I'd argue. Mike Turnitsen's positioning is a bit of an issue, I'd argue, before climb, so I don't think he would have been there. And Quickstep, like you said, has had to struggle with a lot of illnesses. Like other teams, I'd argue that Jumbo has had somewhat the least of those from all the teams.
Definitely.
And Quickstep with Lampard being ill a few times and now not being at the start line as a consequence. We know that Ballerini wasn't looking too good for a while. We know that Leclerc, also an issue there, that he was off the bike now for the entirety due to that heart issue. The fact that the likes of a Steimler is tuning up and a Stan Steels, those riders, an Honoré who didn't start today, for example, like that's 6 riders to start with instead of like 7. And to be honest, Steimler and Steels are not going to be the riders that do it here at E3 for Quickstep. No offense to those riders, they're good riders, but not to be in the final of these races. So who do you have left? Seneschal, Stibar, Asgreen, and Ballerini, who hasn't been looking that great this year. So Stibar, it's one or the other for him in a few races, and it doesn't seem like today he was anywhere. And Seneschal was looking decent, but I feel like he's that kind of cobble rider that is better suited for Roubaix than he is for the Hill Classics. Am I wrong in that?
Well, I mean, last year he was like second wheel going into Timeberg, attacking with Asgreen. But the difference is, and this is probably a flow-on effect from No de Klerk, they're entering the Timeberg in bad position, so then there's no slip room. So, when Seneschal enters in the front, Asgreen attacks over the top of him. Seneschal can do the climb 2 seconds slower and still crest the climb with the group of 9, whereas Wout was the opposite last year. He starts 10 wheels back. He has to do the whole climb 2 seconds faster than Seneschal and Asgreen. And so maybe that's a de Klerk issue. Without him there, they're not able to control, not able to be in the base of climbs well, and Steimler just can't do that job the same way.
I think when it comes to transfers, there are options on the market. Jumbo did great when it comes to Laporte and Benoit, but what if Quickstep signs Anthony Turgui next year? He's out of contract?
I don't know who's out of contract, but they do need to. Stibar's aging out. They need to stock up on some classics guys. It also must be said, we haven't mentioned who I think was the biggest X factor in the Cobble Classics for them last year, Alaphilippe. He's the world champion. He's not doing the Cobble Classics this year because he's wanting to focus on Liège, winning that finally, and Tour of Flanders. He's one of 2 with Asgreen in a group, or 4 or 5 in the finale. He's attacking in Omloop and then leading out the sprint. They're missing him because he's one of their best riders. So Asgreen solo, I don't know how strong he was today. Pretty strong, but it's a whole different ball game when they can't ride the Quickstep way. Like with no sprinter, with like Asgreen, he beat MVP in a sprint. But you know what I mean? They're looking like a different team. Do you expect this to turn around by Flanders? It's in a week, and it's in like 9 days.
I don't expect Quickstep to turn around in that way, but I do think that the addition of other favorites into the race in the Tour of Flanders, like a Van der Poel riding that race, like a Pogacar riding that race, who I consider with one of the outsiders of that race, certainly, then I'd argue that Jumbo will have a much harder time. which will allow opportunities for riders like Asgreen to benefit from that. So I think it's more because Jumbo will have a harder time winning RVV in the same way that they did today. And as a consequence, the outsiders can benefit from that. Does that make sense?
Definitely. You think, MVDP's there in the group on the Tyenberg today. It's just another man to cover Benoit when he slips off the front, or to pull, or to help Asgreen, or to mark Van Aert. Maybe Van der Poel doesn't lose Laporte's wheel, and then that brings the group back together. Maybe he snap closes it over the top of the Paardenberg, and that helps Asgreen. All these sort of things, like MVDP not being here and not being at Omloop, it certainly makes life a lot easier for Jumbo-Visma.